Good morning, Miami sports fans. Welcome to the Miami Sports Break. It's Thursday around lunchtime, a little late getting started today, but we have a lot to talk about after last night. I'm joined, as always, by Jakari Givens here, and Ethan Skolnick of 5 Reasons is going to be joining us here shortly to break down everything in the world of Miami Heat basketball. So it's funny. It seems like basketball season just ended, and obviously we're already getting hyped up for the season to start again.
Yeah, we less than a month away. I think it starts December 22nd. It's
Yep.
Thursday, November 19th. So yeah, we're gonna have that mix again of football and basketball on at the same time.
Yeah, so a lot of people will be home for the holidays, obviously, so that'll be pretty exciting. So, want to jump in before Ethan comes on and talk about the pick for Miami at number 20. The Miami Heat selected Precious Achiuwa, power forward from Memphis in the NBA draft. A lot of people projected he wouldn't actually be there at 20, and it was a pick that, in hindsight, looks like was a good fit for Miami. What are your early thoughts on the selection, Jock, and what do you think about how the draft unfolded for Miami?
Yeah, I thought they were gonna go Maxwell from Kentucky. I thought that would have been a better fit, due to Dragic being a free agent. I think he's a high energy scorer, and Miami kind of struggled last year. Kendrick Nunn struggled, especially in the playoffs, and I thought Maxwell could have brought that scoring punch and how energetic he is as a defender. He's very lit, but from what I've read about the kid, they say he's a high energy guy. Say he has a lot of Bam type qualities. The biggest thing that I heard, which was very surprising, was he has the Kawhi Leonard type thing. Um, he believes he can improve to be an outside shooter, have a good mid range game, and he believes he can turn into a great defender. So they believe he can, but he's a very high energy guy. He had a double double at Memphis, and I think he was a freshman of the year in the conference, especially after
Good
Wiseman
AAC.
went out. After Wiseman went out, he was playing extremely well. So to get another live body down there who you can depend on, because at times last year when Miami went away from Bam Adebayo, we didn't have a backup guy. So let's see how he develops. I trust our core and our development team because they have developed so many guys, and I'm interested to see who's going to get signed to the G League team and how the Miami Heat. But without the G League season in question, I feel like Miami's going to bring in 20 guys to the max so they can go ahead. But I love the pick because they say this guy can develop into the Kawhi Leonard type. But off the finish, who he reminds me of is Pascal Siakam.
Yeah, same type of build and everything, and definitely an exciting prospect, a lot of upside. And actually, we've got Ethan now joining the stream. What's going on, boss?
Hey guys, sorry I'm a little bit late. Running
It's
for
a
my own
long.
radio show. I like that though. I hadn't heard that comparison, the Siakam comparison, and I think we're getting a lot about the Bam comparison here. But Siakam makes some sense. His build. I mean, I think he can grow more into it. But I mean, the athleticism, the ability to play off, above the rim, and some of the skills he's shown. I think one of the things, as I was watching a lot of video on him last night, is he's got a real soft touch on his jumper, and he doesn't seem afraid to use it. Now, I don't know that that's something they'll go to right away, but it's interesting that you look at some of the elements that Bam brought to the game, and one of the things that was talked about with Bam by Pat was, that when he first came, was he had a workout where he made every jumper in practice or in the workout. And this kid has a jumper, but we haven't seen Bam show the confidence in his yet. But it seems like this kid likes to shoot it. So when I asked Riley yesterday, I said, can they play together? He seemed pretty clear that they could play together for defensive purposes. But I think ultimately, offensively, they'll be able to play together too.
Yeah, they say he has a lot of switchability. He's a very versatile defender, can probably switch 1 through 5, not on the guards for a long extended period of time, but Bam switches on guards all the time during the possession and can guard them.
Ethan, did you expect him to be there at 20? What was kind of the feeling?
No. I think most people thought he'd be kind of in that 12 to 16 range. So he did slip. I don't think that they intended on keeping the pick under every circumstance. I know they looked at Vernon Carey Jr. I had heard they made a promise to him, but those promises, as you know, Jakari, like this, those promises are kind of silly. I mean, how can you promise when you've got unforeseen events, right? You just don't know. And so I think you look at where Kerry went. I mean, he dropped another 12 picks, right? So he would have been a reach at 20. Now they will reach for players. They reached for Bam. They reached for Hero in terms of where they projected to go. But this kid was actually the opposite. This kid was supposed to go higher and went a little bit lower, mostly because there were 3 or 4 players picked that were considered reaches, that were picked before 20 when they were supposed to go after 20. And that's when you see an opportunity to get a guy who slips to you. And that's basically what they found. And look, I talked about this on my show today. They're building basically a 3-pronged team. This is the way I look at it. They're elite shooting, but of course, with elite shooting, sometimes those guys aren't the best defenders. Okay. So you need switchable, athletic, defensive players, particularly bigs, to cover up for that so that you can play the elite shooters more of the time. So if you have Robinson, you have Hero, you have Dragic, that kind of elite shooting, you're going to need these kind of bigs to protect them. And then there's the third rail, which is the experienced, gritty veteran guys. So that's Jimmy. I mean, Goran is in that category too, but I think I'm more in the shooting. That's Jimmy, that's Jay, that's Iguodala, more of that kind of group. And I think they're going to add another to that group. I think you can see someone like Wes Matthews in the mix here now, who fits that mold. So it's kind of 3 things, and it gives Eric a lot of flexibility in terms of the types of lineups that he wants to play. If you need a shutdown lineup, I mean, I think this kid's going to get some run. Now, I think the one thing to be concerned about, though, with every rookie is, first thing, no summer league, no time to get acquainted with your team, your situation. You're literally in training camp in 2.5 weeks with grown men. It's a different deal. There's no run up to it. And I don't think enough people are talking about that. I think it's a real challenge. I think a lot of these rookies are going to get stashed for that reason. And so I think to expect this kid with this team that has championship aspirations to be more than a situational player this season is probably asking too much. But we'll see. I mean, nobody expected Tyler Hero to be playing the most fourth quarter minutes in the finals. So it's possible.
I think it was
like with the season, I just feel like Miami has done a good job of working their guys in anyway. It's never been I can't remember like a guy we had that we started from day one to really begin with. Even Bam, even when he came in, Bam was coming off the bench, and we were contemplating minutes between him and Hassan Whiteside. So,
well, I wasn't, but yeah, others were. Yes.
Well, there's a lot of questions at the top of the draft, obviously, with Edwards and Wiseman and everything like that. And with the COVID situation and the lack of kind of the teams being able to really do the homework on the players in an in-person sense, and a lot of that leading up to the draft, how do you think that played into, the selection of Achiuwa at 20? I know we have the connection there with Memphis with Mike Miller. How do you think that sort of gave us a little bit maybe of a leg up to get some insight on him and solidify that selection?
Well, it wasn't just Mike. It's also Penny. Penny played for the Heat. So Mike's not even with Memphis anymore, but obviously he knows this kid, and they consulted with both. But it's Penny, too. And I think, again, I mean, you're talking about high-level competition at Memphis. You're talking about a team that was supposed to be a top 10 team because Wiseman was supposed to be there, and actually Achiuwa was supposed to be his complement. So the idea of him complementing another elite big is not really a foreign thing, guys. I mean, that's kind of what he was supposed to do at Memphis, and then he had to anchor the defense when Wiseman was ruled ineligible. So they had a pretty good handle on him. I mean, Memphis was a team that people were watching. I wasn't expecting the Heat to pick a player from a small program. I didn't know if, there was a Kentucky player, a couple of them on the board where they picked. I think there'll be some questions about whether they should have taken Maxey. I think for what they're looking for right now, though, they value the big more. They don't have bigs in their system. Olynyk in the last year of his deal, we don't know if he's going to be back. Myers is a free agent. We don't know if he's going to be back. I don't think Silva was really ready for a role. I think he showed that last year. There were some times he was effective, but kind of what they were trying to get from Silva, this kid can do it, potential to do it with a lot more skill. I mean, that's the thing. Like Silva was just basically sent in to go in and break shit. Like that's basically what he was. Change the energy. He did that in some games, particularly early. But then when teams started to scheme him up, there really wasn't anything for him to go to. I think this kid has a much more polished skill set than that, with a lot more room for growth. And I just think that there's a lot more they can do with him. So if you think of the things that Silva did when he came in last year, if this kid can do that right away, he'll get time. But it's the long game is switchable, guard 4 positions, all of that kind of stuff. Be able to play with Bam, and then as each of them develops their jumper, be able to be forces offensively also. So I like the pick. I think the pick made a lot of sense. We never know with a player that you take how he's going to turn out, but the Heat's track record lately on this stuff is pretty good, and they just developed a player just like this, so they know what they're doing with this kind of player.
So how do you see him fitting into the offense like that?
I mean, I think at first he's just going to be a rim runner and a lob threat. I mean, at first, but I mean, they don't really need a lot offensively. I mean, they really don't. Like, I mean, if you've got Duncan spacing or Goran out there and Jimmy's ability and Bam's ability to make everybody better, as kind of the hub of the offense. And obviously what Tyler's development, which I mean, I think he's going to be a straight line up. I think they have enough offensively to be very effective. But I think as another rim runner, I mean, I can see him coming off the bench and, playing with Dragic and Dragic and Hero feeding him lobs and him giving you quick energy. And it's like, oh my God, he just gave you 8 points in 7 minutes. And maybe the next stint he's out there, he's not as effective. But I do think that that's the way they view him. And he's a modern big, he's a modern big. And Vernon Carey's not really a modern big. Vernon Carey is more of an old school big, kind of like Jahlil Okafor was, right? And that kind of big, I know Pat was partial to that kind of big, but I think even he's realized that that's not where the game has gone.
Like I said, I think the Heat needed more front court help than anything, because you seen last year when Bam left the floor, we did not have a guy. We had to effectively team rebound with Kelly Olynyk playing the 5 sometimes. So I think with his energy that he's gonna bring, he was a double-double guy. I think that's gonna help Miami more. Obviously, Miami's gonna be in all off-season talks like they are every year. Hey, we're gonna bring in this guy, that guy. Ultimately, Ethan, do you see Miami adding a bigger piece, as in like a Bradley Beal? I know everybody wants Giannis, and then with the deal breaking down with the Kings with Bogdanovich, so that's big. So I think, in my opinion, that's a warning sign to the Bucks, because why wouldn't he sign a deal if Giannis is gonna sign?
Well, that's a good question. And now there's some talk that maybe Bogdanovich may just go there directly, which means they won't have to give up DiVincenzo. We'll see. I mean, that is the part of the deal, Ja'Cory, that I liked for the Bucks. I will just say this. I know that Mark Stein and Windhorst, both of whom I like and respect and know, have said that, the Bucks believe he's going to sign the extension. Nobody has said he is signing the extension, right? Right? So until he signs the extension, he hasn't signed the extension. And so I just think that is still kind of an open question, I just think it's still an open question. And I think for the Heat, look, you've got to have a plan after the plan after the plan. He's not the only plan. He was never the only plan. Maybe they finished second in all of this. Maybe, Giannis, they were Giannis's first choice if he left Milwaukee, but he doesn't leave Milwaukee. Maybe they are Bradley Beal's first choice if he forces his way out of Washington, but maybe he doesn't force his way out of Washington. If that happens, it's kind of like how you got in the room with Durant and you almost got Aldridge, you had Gordon Hayward, and you were their second choice. Okay, I mean, it happens, right? I mean, you can't marry them all, right? Like, that's what happens.
These guys, like, fans have to understand this. These guys are going to do what's best for them. Durant was supposed to sign his extension in Oklahoma City after they went to the finals in 2013. Was that when Miami beat them? Oh, their team's going to be all back together. We never seen that team ever again be the same. And then obviously you have the Nets talking about adding James Harden. So to me, the Heat won with depth. They won with coaching and depth last season. Bam took a great step forward, and I expect Tyler Hero to make that jump I see Bill and Hero trending towards the same level. Obviously, adding Bill to that, like that's why I'm cautious of it, because I don't really want to add Bill and then you lose Hero.
Well. Here's the thing: Tyler Hero. Bradley Beal's a superstar. I mean, he's a 25-5-5 guy. Dwayne Wade only did that twice. Beal's done it the past 2 years. He's an elite guy. But with that being said, he's also played a bunch of years in the league. He's extraordinarily expensive. If you
And
can
he's been on bad teams.
He's been on bad teams. If you can get 70% of Bradley Beal's production out of Tyler Hero at what 10% of the cost, then I think, as you're talking about it, Pat talked last night about okay, Mickey will pay the tax if he feels we can win a championship. It's got to be, if you're going to get a contract, it's got to be a contract that's going to put you in the finals. Or, well, they were just in the finals. Now, we can say that was a little bit of a fluky situation, weird situation, not going to be replicated. Brooklyn's better now. Boston will probably be better. Milwaukee's still there. Philly's going to be better. I get all that. But with that being said, you just did it, right? So is it worth hamstringing yourself so much, with the tax, with the cap, with all that stuff, for what essentially will be an upgrade, but not a dramatic upgrade? Now, it might be dramatic right now, but in a year, is it dramatic, right? If Tyler Hero continues to progress, if he's a 21 to 23 point scorer on pretty good efficiency, who's a plus ball handler and an average defender, is it worth making the play for Beal? I would still think seriously about it, but to me, it's not a slam dunk. That's the way I view it.
You need the team around him. I think you got to keep the core of the team that got 2 games away from a championship pretty much in place, and just add to it without really tinkering with the formula, because you were right there and you had some bad circumstances in the finals that could have changed the series, with obviously what happened to Bam and to Goran. So do you bring in like a Wesley Matthews with the mid-level or something, somebing like that, and just call it a day?
I heard Gallinari as well.
Or Gallo,
Gallinari,
he's gonna be more though.
For Gallinari, but if Gallinari, he can sign directly with Atlanta without any kind of a trade. So I would watch that. There was some conversation about Dallas last night on a sign and trade. What you got to understand, everybody got to understand, is that this is a really weak free agent class. Like, once it was clear Anthony Davis is going back to the Lakers, this is a historically bad free agent class. I mean, basically Gallinari and Ibaka are at the head of it, right? And so if you're in that kind of situation, and you've got those, Gallinari, okay, he's going to, whatever team has the most money, if they've got a need, they're going to throw it at him. And that looks like Atlanta. Okay, they got a lot of front court players, but none quite like him. All right, so, if they throw the money at him, he probably takes it. If not, there's still motivation to do a deal with Oklahoma City. There's this pick that the Heat, to have flexibility going forward, they gave it to OKC. They kind of need to unprotect it. And OKC wants it unprotected. So I think if you're in a position where that pick is unprotected, that you can make a trade. Now, the draft is over with, but you can still get something done there. Could you move Nunn and Olynyk and unprotect the pick? And will that get you Gallinari? Like, if you can make a deal like that, that's possible. But he's got to kind of say he wants to be in Miami. And to this point, he hasn't said that.
And I want to ask this too. Do you feel like right now, as the East constructed, what do you see the Heat like right now? No additions.
I mean, I think they obviously created matchup problems for Milwaukee. Are they better than Milwaukee on paper? I don't know. I mean, again, we got to see.
I love Drew Holiday, but I don't see him as the guy that's going to put them over the hump. Not right. He's a great player though. Every podcast you talk on or you go to, people say, "Oh, he's the most underrated player in the NBA." But
he's. I love him for the Heat. Okay, I think he's an upgrade in Milwaukee over Bledsoe. I think he's an upgrade, but also if you look at Bledsoe's numbers the year before he went to Milwaukee, and you look at Holiday's numbers last year, they're the same. So is Holiday going to have the same role that he had in New Orleans? He's not an elite shooter. He's an elite defender. He's a plus ball handler. He's a good scorer. He's a good teammate. I mean, there's a lot of things to like about him. But I'm just saying that, like, Is he the second star that usually gets you a championship? I don't know. He's more of the third guy.
They gave up a lot for him too.
They gave up a lot of their future, but does it make them better now? Yes, enough to say that you probably put them ahead of the Heat at the moment. Is Boston ahead of the Heat? Well, they weren't in the playoffs. We have to see what other moves they make. They're shipping out Hayward probably. Kemba, they've been taking calls on. So I don't know what they're going to look like. Toronto kind of depends, Jakari. Like, Van Vliet and Ibaka coming back.
I don't see Van Vliet coming back. I think the Knicks throw the table at him.
Knicks or Detroit, team like that, right? Bad team. Okay, so if that's the case, then you're looking at their other, Lowry. Does he stay? Well, what kind of? So they may go down. I liked Philadelphia's moves last night. I do, but the issue with Philadelphia is, are Embiid and Simmons going to stay healthy and play well together?
Is Doc Rivers going to be able to coach? Like I didn't see Doc Rivers as a good fit there because he doesn't cultivate his guys like that. He's not one of they need a structured system in Philadelphia to win.
A player development style system rather than established player system.
Doc's the kind of guy who comes in and he lets his leaders lead, and we saw what happened last year with the Clippers. It didn't work out so well. He's going to have to get in their faces a little bit, the two of them. I think Embiid wants to win. I don't really know if Simmons does as much. I feel like Simmons is more about the other stuff.
He's by himself.
But I think Embiid wants to win. It's just a health thing with Embiid. I mean, as much as Embiid's a goofball, he does. I think he plays hard enough on the court. But yeah, you look at those teams, and then of course there's Brooklyn, and we don't know for sure. I think Durant's going to be great. I don't have any concerns there. Obviously, Kyrie's an elite player. Is he going to play more than 50 games? I don't know. Is he going to be healthy for the playoffs? I don't. They have a lot of complementary pieces. Are they going to flip some of those pieces? Do they have enough bigs? I'm not sure. All of those teams, to me, are in the mix with Miami. I think the difference between this time and last offseason is that I said Miami would be a 3 or 4 seed. They were a 5 seed, but they would have been a 3 or 4 if the season had played out. But most people were not saying that. They were saying that the Miami was more in the 6 to 8 range. I think most people now have Miami in that mix. Are they better than Milwaukee, Boston, Toronto, Philadelphia, Brooklyn? We'll see. But I think it's clear it's those 6 teams, unless Toronto drops out because they decide to go more into rebuild mode. But I think otherwise it's those teams. I think Indiana takes a step back, although the Pacers were playing pretty well last year when Sabonis was healthy. And so if Oladipo comes back, I don't know.
I don't see that happening because he kind of fractured the relationship.
Well, not only did he fracture it with them, but I can tell you that the Heat were so turned off by the way he acted during that series. They were not impressed. I mean, he was asking to join the Heat. He asked Lowry to join Toronto. Like he was selling himself. It's just a weird deal. And it's weird because he had a very positive reputation in the league until all this stuff. But yeah, I see the Heat in that mix. Are they the best team in the East? I mean, Riley was talking yesterday about continuity, Eric getting his guys back. They may get off to a fast start because they know each other. And that may help, but they also may be exhausted. I mean, they may be exhausted. And so, we'll see how it goes. But I don't think the Heat need to make a major move to stay in that group. They're in that group. Now, can they elevate themselves? Yes. Would I mortgage the future and all the optionality that they're going to have in 21, whether it's Giannis or Kawhi or somebody else, to do that, or some other star that is disgruntled and wants to come to this situation? No, I would not jeopardize it by doing something rash at this point.
And these teams are reacting to Miami. Basically, these teams in the East are retooling based on what they saw Miami do to try to counter that. Right. So Miami's playing the long game. They can wait. They don't have to really do anything in a hurry, like you said. And the big class is next year. So they're in a good position. They don't have to do anything, but if they do, it's only going to make them better.
And also, you got to think Miami, for draft class-wise, 2022 is supposed to be a loaded draft class. So at that point, say, hey, you can move on from some guys. Like, okay, hey, let's trade these guys for a top draft pick. Let's bring them back. Let's do something like that. So Miami, there's so many options for them. So I think they're just like, what should we do because it's so much for them out there at this point.
I think Jakari, Riley's biggest test is patience now. I mean, he doesn't have to jump on anything, but you also don't want to be Danny Ainge. And in that sense, where Ainge was holding on to assets forever, could have made a run at Kawhi, could have made a run at AD. Have they been competitive? Yes. Did he get Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum? Yes. So there were some good things that happened. But when you look at all of the assets they had, for them still not to be a finals team with everything that they had 4 years ago, right? All of the assets, all of the picks, the Brooklyn picks, everything else, and to still be in a position where, okay, they've got an emerging superstar in Tatum, they've got a star in Jaylen Brown, okay, and then what, right? I mean, they're shopping Kemba, right? So they're looking for something else at that position. They're shopping Hayward. Now, Hayward's injury played into that, but still, they went to a lot of work.
Hayward had 2 big injuries though too.
No,
while he was in Boston.
Absolutely. But my thing is, they were positioned to do some big things, and at times Ainge refused to pull the trigger. And so Riley won't be afraid to pull the trigger. That's not going to be the issue. The issue with that is the other way. The issue is, do you make the bold, rash move that maybe isn't the best move? But look, Jimmy Butler, they waited on that thing for a year. I mean, they knew he wanted to come. They almost had a deal with the Timberwolves. They thought they had a deal with the Timberwolves. They ended up making a better deal, actually, ultimately, with Philadelphia, because they didn't have to give up Olynyk. The original deal with the Timberwolves, they had to give up Richardson, Olynyk in a first, and Tibbs was holding out for Bam, and they weren't going to give up Bam. They ended up waiting a year, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. And what happens? They end up just giving up Jay Rich. And we saw yesterday Jay Rich went for Seth Curry. I mean, they got Jimmy Butler for Jay Rich.
Basically. I think Richardson is probably going to be on the move again, but I think he fits in Dallas.
Yeah.
But I do think they have a log jam at his position, so I think that's a guy who may get moved. I just see the Heat adding smaller players. I do think they're going to probably take a chance on some guy who a team has given up on. I like Chris Dunn. I don't know if he fits in the plan going forward.
He's interesting. Yeah, no, he's interesting. They need a point of attack defender, even if it's for small minutes. Maybe a 10, 12-minute game guy. Because, look, Goran, I mean, you already had the situation where Goran defensively was, you had to hide him, and now he's coming off the foot injury. He's another year older. He just played a ton of minutes in the bubble. So, I mean, you know what you have Goran for. Goran is the guy who gets you out of scoring ruts. That's his job. That he did it all year. He did it particularly in the postseason, and you need that. But he's not a defender. I mean, he's not a 35-minute-a-game player. They had to play him that much in the postseason. They don't want to have to do that again. They need another point. They need another player who can play that position.
Yeah, I like that, but I just a proponent is like I thought Miami should have took a chance on Marquise Chris last season before he was bouncing around. So I see Miami calling some of these teams finally like, hey, we have these loose players. Hey, let's take a chance on some of these younger guys.
How about a Harry Giles? I mean, that's a name.
I like Giles too. That's a name. Yeah. Just a development guy, because it's not like they can't develop. They took Duncan Robinson from probably being out the league into a guy who's going to probably command $18 to $20 million next year.
Well, and finally, now that the roster is constructed pretty much the way Spoelstra and the team want it, now it's just a matter of finding a very specific piece, like you said, with a very specific role, and you just have to wait for that piece to show itself, or you develop that piece. Is there anybody in house that they could develop for that role?
I mean, KZ is the guy. I mean, Gabe Vincent has limited upside, but I mean, he could potentially be a situational shooter for them. I think they like Kyle Alexander a little bit as a big, but the guy is KZ. I mean, when they unleash him, I'm not sure, but there's going to be minutes for him this year, and I think, if you take a look at his skill set, I think he's the reason that Derek Jones is going to be allowed to walk, because they don't want to block KZ's development anymore. And just as there's a lot of things about DJJ I like, but I feel like everything DJJ does except for the high flying dunks KZ can do or will be able to do, but he adds other stuff. There's size, ball handling,
length, and
all of that kind of stuff that you just, and that's why I think like Derek's going to get a nice offer from somewhere else. I think you should take it. I think that the team that gets him may be a little disappointed if they're expecting too much. To me, he's a high level role player. He's not a frontline guy, but
He can be like Iggy, like how Iggy
he could be.
is
But
now.
he's so young. He's got so much time. But, I mean, why not get the bag now, right? Like, get the bag, for 3 years. I see a team that might fit him is Atlanta. I think, they need an athlete wing defender, go along with Reddish, protect Trae Young a little bit. That one makes some sense. He goes to a team like Detroit. I don't know, man. Like, I think he's got to go to a team that's on the cusp of being a playoff team. At least we'll find a role for him. He goes to a bad team, they're going to put the ball in his hands, and I don't think that's going to work.
Or a contender? What about like Brooklyn or somebody like that for him?
That would be the thing, but I don't think a team like that is going to pay him what he wants, right?
Do you think Miami has a chance at Kelly Oubre?
I like Kelly Oubre a lot. Again, if you're making a deal with OKC, like to unprotect that pick, then there's a lot of conversations that you can have there. You got to give up Kendrick Nunn for sure. You probably got to give up the Olynyk contract, which I think is likely going to happen. But Oubre is a player they've liked for a long time, and you saw the breakout in the past year. So he was a very young player when he came into the NBA. So there again, you talk about these young guys that come in at 19, like you give it 3 or 4 years and you see what happens. And I think we're kind of there yet. We're there at this point.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting with this quick turnaround in the offseason, kind of the early start. I'm curious to see how a lot of these teams that have been on the shelf that weren't in the playoff bubble per se, like how they come out early, and the teams like Miami and the Lakers that had those long runs, how they respond. There's going to be so many different teams at so many different places during the beginning of the season. It's really going to be unprecedented.
Yeah, and also teams are traveling again, but some arenas going to have fans, some aren't.
So it's still.
Well, I think there will be fans, though. I think they'll probably get 25% of the buildings filled. They might put them in the suites, but there will be fans there. So again, it's a different experience. Riley, addressed that last night. But the thing about Heat fans can trust is their organization is pretty capable of adjusting to anything. So I mean, you're gonna have the good organization succeeded in the bubble, and it's probably gonna happen again.
Yeah, that definitely showed the cohesiveness of the team with everything that they went through, and we're able to kind of to push a lot farther than anybody really expected, and we're only going to build on that hopefully this year. So, any other thoughts on last night as far as the draft overall? How you saw some of the other teams getting better and.
Yeah, I mean, I think my final thought on it would be that I don't think we're going to see a lot of impact this year for most of these players. I think these are mostly developmental picks. I think teams, you look at Golden State, you take Wiseman because he's the best long-term play. You just lost Klay Thompson potentially for the season again. So you would think you got to take a guard, but I don't think you can look at it this way. Most of these guys, again, they're not going to have summer league. They didn't have conference tournaments. They didn't have an NCAA tournament, and they're all coming in young. So
they basically haven't played a game since December.
Yeah,
there could be some bad basketball early too.
To me, it's a redshirt year for most of them, and I think the teams that really want to make a run this year are going to stay with continuity to kind of just to run it in. So to try to make another run. So I think the next 24 hours is going to be more interesting. We'll see how things play out, and I think it's going to be more about the trades than it is the free agents because, like I said, it's not a strong free agent class. So we see who else moves. Does Oladipo move? Is Gallinari signed and traded? Is there more Harden conversation? Is there more talk about Giannis signing an extension? Does Bogdanovich actually go to Milwaukee? Toronto, you mentioned Van Vliet. Do they trade Lowry if they dump Van Vliet, or do they keep him? And does Masai decide to finally rebuild? Because I think that was kind of the plan, but the team was ahead of schedule. So, there's with a lot of these teams, that's the deal. I think you can see teams like Atlanta, Phoenix that have been out of the playoffs for a little bit, particularly Phoenix. They want to make the playoffs, and I think they're trying to make a push. And you have other teams like I think Cleveland is still in a rebuild. I think the Knicks are still in a rebuild, endless rebuild, right? Detroit
Charlotte.
is still in a rebuild. So I think for some of those teams, Sacramento is still in a rebuild. So I think you're seeing the tiers of teams kind of separate. You'll see more of that over the next 24 to 48 hours.
Well, definitely appreciate you coming on with us today, Ethan. I know it was a long day yesterday, and got a big weekend coming up as well with the Dolphins, and the Hurricanes are postponed. So what's next on the network coming up the rest of the week?
Well, we're going to do more Five on the Floor. We'll have an episode evaluating, kind of looking ahead at free agency. We will do that tonight, talking about the Riley presser. So we'll have a new Five on the Floor. There's a new one up today. I'll get one of you guys on Onside as soon as the Canes are back. So we'll get you on OnsideRadio.com.
They said Olenek has exercised his player option for the 2021 season.
We actually had that yesterday, although Riley said it wasn't done. We believe it was done, so that is what it is.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, we'll end it on that note, and definitely appreciate Ethan, and we're going to catch up with you guys soon. And thanks everybody so much for watching.
All right, thanks guys.